Hi and welcome. Today I'm doing I want to call them coins, but they're just in a size that I like, so they're just round pieces of art. um, you can definitely alter the size to be coins, and I've just taken some round cardstock that I cut out of my Cricut. And I have a bunch of butterflies from a big sticker book. And so I've taken 4 butterflies and I matched them up with a little flower bud that would kind of go with that butterfly. And then I have a bunch of scraps on the side there that I'm going to go through to use. And so the first thing I'm going to do is cover the entire surface of the circle with a piece of either old scrapbook paper, maybe it's book paper, and this one here is like a digital download and there was some left of it, so I'm adding a portion of that. So it just depends on what you have. And I like using scraps for this because I can get rid of some scraps and it just makes it interesting. The last two I'm going to use book paper, and so I just figure out where I want it and then I'm going to glue it to the back side of what I want to show. And I'm choosing it because I want as much text to show as possible versus paragraph returns where you have a lot of blank area. And once I get them all glued on, I just cut them out by hand. And then I'll be ready to start collaging on top. And so with the backgrounds done, I'm just matching what I want to go with which circle. And I'm just going to start with this one. And you'll see that my scrap didn't cover all the way to the top. So I'm just trying to figure out how I want to cover that up. And once I figure out the method for it, I actually use that same method in each circle. So I have this scrap piece of paper that I have stamped on it, and it just came out of my papers, and I try to keep a bunch of things like that on hand where I've got paper that I have that already was aged, or I age it and then I'll stamp on it just so I have things to draw from without having to create it at the moment. And I've decided to add a little bit of black to each one. So I add a little scrap of black. And I'm going to just cut out my little flower. Then I have these labels, and actually it's a stamp from Tim Holtz. I think it is, I think it's from the field notes. And then I added some either antique linen or old paper just to make it so it wasn't white. And now I'm just gonna stamp on top of it with something from Eccentric or maybe from field notes, just to have like a number. And again, I'm following the same recipe here for all four. So they kind of will look like a set, but look a little different. And I'm going to add on the bottom a little word from, I think this is from, let me look at it, Clippings. Yeah, it's from Clippings. And so I just find one I like. And in this case, it says true to her word. And it's just kind of random. I was looking not only for something that I liked what it said, but also will fit inside the circle. And I have a little scrap. In this case, the scrap was from a scrap of paper strips, or maybe even backdrop. And those are Tim Holtz products, paper strips and backdrops. So I glue my phrase to the scrap, and that's going to be glued to the bottom. And so I just start gluing my items. My label is going to go up top, and it can either go at an angle or straight on, whatever, depending on how much you want to see what's behind it. And then the flower got glued on top of that, just a little corner of it. And then I have these, they're like 3D dots, and the dot itself would be way too big for the butterflies, and I often use the in-betweens the dots for skinny things or small things. And so I just cut a little sliver of the 3D sticker and put it onto the butterfly so that it raises the butterfly just slightly higher than the rest of the circle. I trim anything extending. In some cases, I do have things that kind of just edge over the edge, and I'll leave them. So it's just, I'm trying to mix it up, but yet have them be definitely a family. So that's the first one, and I'm going to start the second one. So I have the background done, and I'm going to just repeat the recipe there. I've got some, in this case, it's going to be, it was like an ad from a old magazine. And so I'm just going to have that be along the top. I'm just making sure it's glued all the way. And then another label, which I'm going to stamp with a different stamp. I want them all to be different. and that's the flower that's going to go with it. And I want to add a piece of black. I'm not going to add the little dots that I just showed you, but I'll add another piece from a scrap of a scrapbook paper. I got this paper at Joann's, and I use it so much when I want to add just a touch of black. I just really like it. And since I want to make sure how I'm putting it down, I want to trim it all first, just for ease of positioning the next piece. And this one, I get one little corner of it hanging off the edge. And then the flower, still so you can read it. And I'll be adding the butterfly, but I need a little scrap for the little sentiment. I'm using the same set of sentiments on all of them, and I'm just kind of adding some distress ink around the paper and around the stamp, and then gluing that on. This scrap was a jelly print. Sometimes I print both sides, especially if I wasn't crazy about one side. I might flip it over and do a jelly print on the other side that's different, and that was what this was, a scrap of that. And again, a little sliver of the 3D foam stickers, and just positioning it to the back. So once you have your recipe, if you want them to look like a family, you don't have to do that, of course. You can make them look very different. But once you have it, it actually goes pretty quickly. And I plan to, I'm making 4 that look like this. I'm going to be making more that look different, like maybe 4 more that look a little bit different. I think I'm going to use butterflies, but and then I think I'm going to mount them in a frame, and I just think that would look really cool to have a frame with all these butterflies in it. This one had a little edge that I just thought needed a little something, so I added a little bit of gold Posca Paint Pen dots, and you can see it when the light shines on it. So somehow my camera, I stopped it for a second and I didn't turn it back on time, but I did put a piece of paper on the top. It's from an old book. It was actually from an old airline book, and so it had a lot of tables and things, and so I just took a scrap of that, and then another scrap of that looked like ledger paper, and I stamped that with tag number, and I think that was from Eccentric, and then the black piece of paper, as I am doing it on all of them. I've stamped the label, and now I'm preparing the piece that's going to hold the sentiment. And in this case it says love and abundance. The last one, I don't know if I said it. It says a corner of your heart. And I'm using just a yellow piece of jelly print to add the words. It's kind of yellowish orange. And this one I'm using just a little more obvious slant on the label. Little flower. And again, I'll add the 3D scrap to the back. And on to the last one. And here I'm taking a scrap of a digital download. So this had a bird on it, and I cut the bird out, but the background was really nice too, so I kept the background to use somewhere, and here I'm using a piece of it. I was thinking about using a little bit of the song sheet, but I don't use it because then I couldn't see any of the text underneath it. Adding my black. going to cut out my butterfly. And just going around the edges so they aren't white. And then I'm using this little piece from, it's actually from a backdrop, and I had some strips left of it, and so this is just a section of that, and I'm just going to use that to hold my sentiment. And there I was cutting out my flower. And this sentiment says, "From the clouds." And actually leave a little bit of this one hanging over, just like I did on the orange butterfly. I left a little bit of hanging over, but you can definitely trim it. Just adding some inking to any edges that look white. And I'm going to stamp the label. And this one, I actually stamp it with 2 different stamps. Just so it kind of fills up the label a little more. And now I'm ready to start gluing everything down. And there, I forgot to put my black piece down before I put the flower down, so I'm just trying to scoot it underneath it a little bit. Adding my sentiment piece, and that piece is also from a digital download. It's just a different edge, so it looks a little bit different. Or no, that one was from a backdrop. So adding my 3D piece. And that will be it. I have some final pictures coming up. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. If you haven't subscribed, please do. I'd love to invite you on the journey. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. But either way, I hope you have an awesome day.